We did it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Striking Gold. I'm Rob Lowder. That's KP Posey. And if you are wondering, if you're looking at the stream and you're like wondering why we always show up to the stream so excited, because I found this nifty little intro music, or a little like starting up the stream music. And I found it on, it's a free royalty thing, but you just got to give them a shout out on the YouTube channel. So check that out. But it's this nice little beat that we get to listen to every time we start the stream. So if you're on iTunes, Spotify, just come on over to the YouTube channel, if only to hear the intro music, because every time me and KP just vibe out, as the kids would say, as horrible as that sounds. But anyways, KP, how are you, man? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm always ready, or just waiting for some hippie band or like Noah Khan to come out and just like drop a verse to that beat. I love it. We don't have, like, it's the off season, right? So now, instead of, for everybody listening, we were going to come into today just dumping on mini camp.
We were not. It was my idea. KP, the smarter of the two of us, said, Rob, we're going to look like absolute assholes if we just make fun of everybody's takes from the off-season program.
So think about that, right? The rookies and everybody's so excited to see them. So you want to hear Deshaun Stribling did something. You want to hear Kalen Black did something. You want to hear, Romello Heights get off was incredible. That's why they drafted him. But everything is like on air. They're not allowed to tackle. They're not allowed to touch. Like, that's how you get in trouble.
He's not even wearing pads.
That's how Kyle Shanahan gets fined. So in order to avoid all that, in order to avoid the good folks who are trying to do their job and give out as much information as possible, we are not going to tell you how Kalen Black looked last week at minicamp.
But what about Deshaun Stribling's box drills?
We are not going to show you Stribling running down 40 yards and breaking down as a potential special teams gunner. No, we are not going to do that.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. And if you would like to know, without being condescending or assholeish about it at all, a box drill is simply there to reinforce technique, footwork. If you are going to break down your feet at the top of the route, what it should feel like, you pump your hands with it. When you go to change direction, you should lead with your toe and your knee, and that way, you know what I mean? Like, it's a technique thing. It's not like a, hey, please do this as fast as you can thing. Like, it's not what it is, man.
Get down in your routes. That's
it's just practice. Like, there are things that you have to practice. Not everything has to be a route or like exactly what it looks like on the football field. So, and even, how do you understand? He said, tough to get anything on day one. Respect the restraint.
This could carry over into training camp too. So for those that don't know, like, media is only allowed to record up until individual drills. So these EDDs, everyday drills, these guys it's like muscle memory for them. So it's not like they're going balls to the wall. They're just warming up, right? They're just getting their everything loose. They don't take it seriously. So even in a drill that looks like they're doing well, they're probably going about 70% realistically.
Right. And it's funny too, whenever anybody says, and the boys at Candlestick Chronicles make sure to remind me of this all the time, but anytime anybody ever says, well, the media is only allowed to record, warm-up portions of practice, I always kind of cringe and kind of go like this, because I was a huge reason.
Anyway, yeah.
I was a huge reason. Yeah, I was a huge reason. And I didn't do anything wrong. We were allowed to record one-on-ones. I recorded a rep of Marquise Goodwin versus
At
Richard
Richard
Sherman.
Sherman, yeah.
And I posted it online just like everybody else had been doing with these one-on-one clips. And for some reason, mine just flew straight to the top. And I think it was the next offseason where the 49ers were like, okay, no one can record one-on-ones anymore. And I was like, and there were other people that posted the exact same clip, but for some reason, mine was the one that just ruined it for everybody. But
which still kind of sucks just because you see other teams, right?
Oh,
You'll see like the Titans or the Dolphins, and they will be showing like clips of team. Like, wait, what is going on here? How are y'all allowed to do this? But alas, here we are.
Yeah, man, that was. I mean, it was awesome. You know, I loved going to training camp and being right there and being able to record those things. But now all we do is we stand there with our notebook and we write down who won each rep as fast as you possibly can because we're not allowed to record them anymore. Okay, so today's agenda, you know, and with the schedule coming out later in the week, first a heads up, we are going to push Wednesday's pod to Thursday. That way, we're basically recording right after the schedule's released. You know, and schedule release is one of my favorite times in the goofiest way because you have all these detectives trying to put together these schedules where it's like they're pulling from all these different random releases and different random rumors. And I'm
throughout
sitting
the
there,
day, right?
Yeah, throughout the day. You know, oh, well, if these guys are playing these guys here, then this might mean this over here. And it reminds me of that Always Sunny gif where he's like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I'm sitting there the whole time going, guys, you realize they're going to give it to us later today. We'll know the whole thing. Like,
a few hours, right?
In just some few hours, you know, so it's always a fun, but hey, man, have your fun. If you're one of the detectives, then knock yourself out. It's just, I'm always sitting there going, I think I'm going to put my efforts towards something else, and then I'll see it later. But so we figured today, why not take kind of a broader look at the NFC since we're getting the schedule this week and kind of paint the picture for how we think the 49ers stand and where they sit. So gross. Without fail, a random account will generate 250,000 followers in like 6 hours with scheduled leaks, and we'll
every year that happens.
It is pretty unbelievable. So we're just going to take a broader look at the NFC and work our way. We'll start with the NFC West. That's the easy point. We'll run through each team and just kind of feel like, you know, give our thoughts on how we feel. It's not a super in-depth like, hey, every team added this player. Where does that change? It's just kind of how we feel the 49ers line up with these other teams and how much confidence we're going to have in the 49ers in relation to the rest of the NFC going into the season. So, I mean, we're going to start in the NFC West. And that just pretty much means that we have to start with the man themselves, really, and that is the Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champions. Yes, they won it in the 49ers stadium. You won't see me making a big deal out of that because I just feel like things like that don't really matter. The 49ers are going to go right back to practicing and playing in that stadium, and we're moving on. It's just
they already forgot it happened.
Right. So Seahawks had a pretty volatile, tumultuous offseason. Nothing they could have done about it. That was always going to happen. They re-signed Rashid Shaheed to a 3-year, $51 million contract. Jackson Smith-Njigba sticking around on a big old mega deal. Just trying to look at some of the other bigger names they added. That was it for the most part. That was kind of all they had the ability to add. I'm looking through these. Re-signed quarterback Joshua Joby. Is it Job or Joby? I don't know how to say his last name.
I thought it was Joe, but I don't know.
It probably is Job. That would make a lot more sense. And then on the other side of the coin, they lost some big names. Running back Kenneth Walker, their Super Bowl MVP. Edge Boye Mafe went to the Bengals. Kenneth Walker went to the Chiefs. Cornerback Tariq Woolen, another starter, went to the Eagles. And safety Kobe Bryant, another starter, went to the Bears. So, KB, where are you sitting on the Seahawks, man? I know just in our text conversations, you weren't necessarily expecting the same type of dominance. I don't know what comes to your head when you think of the defending Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough for them to repeat what they did last year. They went 8-1 away from home, which good luck repeating that, plus 191 point differential, which was by far and away the best in the NFL. And, you know, when you generate turnovers like they did, when you have the special teams play like they did, which Rashid Shaheed deserves a lot of credit for that, but losing Kenneth Walker, big play threat, Jadarian Price is probably going to be like a similar type where he's going to make some plays as well, but rookie. So the idea is he's not going to have the same type of success initially that Walker showed last year. I just think it's going to be very hard for them to replicate what they did on both sides of the ball. Think about it. For as often as they ran the ball, they essentially, and this seems like I'm minimizing what he did, and I'm not at all, but they basically hid Sam Darnold for a lot of the game, or they didn't ask him to do what basically Matthew Stafford was. So they do that. And then you have the whole coordinator thing. We saw what the Eagles look like. There it is. We saw what the Eagles looked like when they lost their coordinators last year. So I think losing Clint Kubiak, who for the first part of the season, I was like, man, he kind of sucks. Like, what are they doing? Because like they were struggling in the red zone. They were only throwing to JSN. And then the more they played, it's like, oh, you have to throw it to JSN. Like, why wouldn't you throw it to JSN every time? And that's effectively what they did. So I just think it's going to be really, really tough for that team, the way they are built, to be as dominant on both sides. I would say as efficient on offense and as dominant defensively as they are. So I think so they lost a safety. I forgot who it was, but they also lost a safety to the Bears, I think. So Tyakota, who when I was watching them, yeah, there it is. When I was watching them, like the Tyakota guy who's going to step in, and he's probably going to be really good. Bud Clark, who's also going to be a free safety, the rookie free safety they drafted. Like he might be okay, but I just think losing your glue guy like that is going to be tough. So I'm not so sure that, again, just when you are a number one defense, and not just a number one defense, they were like 2022 49ers good. Like they were historically good. They were one of the best defenses in the last decade. Inevitably, you're going to take a step back, right? You're not going to be as good. So if we factor in that, if we factor in maybe Darnold makes more mistakes, maybe teams realize that, hey, they don't have anybody else to throw to but this one guy, and they force Shaheed to beat them. I just think it's going to look closer to like a 9 to 10 win season than it would a 14 win season. So I think they're going to take a step back. Wild card probably, but I mean, even if other NFC teams step up, I can see Seattle just being right on the cusp, if not missing the playoffs.
It's a pretty insane stat from Strawberry here. It said they had 7 touchdowns scored by defense and special teams, 9 if you it the playoffs.
Come on,
that
man. Like who does that?
That does seem unheard of. But yeah, their offense was not great, but it was great when it needed to be. You know, like I mean, when you look at their 2 matchups against the 49ers, they outscored the 49ers 54-9. Like that's a combination of an offense doing everything it wants to do and a defense doing everything it wants to do. So while their offense never really, in so many ways, we kept reading about them throughout the season. Man, their rushing offense is just not great. And then they played the 49ers and they ran right over them in every way, shape, or form. What was that long? What was that 2nd and 13, 2nd and 16, the big infamous play where John Lynch was losing his mind?
The 3rd and 17, or I think it was 3rd down when they gave that
maybe
up.
It was 3rd down. Yeah, maybe you're right. So it's just a matter of bring it back to the 49ers. Have they closed that gap? And to me, the biggest reason for that gap was the offensive and defensive fronts, and how the defensive front of the Seattle Seahawks was just overwhelmingly better than the 49ers. And I don't know if I do expect the Seattle to regress a little bit, but the outside of Boye and Mafe, the same pieces that were running right over the 49ers throughout the season are still there. So when in terms of the 49ers, like I don't, now the 49ers have gotten better on the offense to give them more of a reason to move the ball against the Seahawks defense. There was nobody better in the NFL against man coverage than Mike Evans over the last like 2 or 3 seasons, I believe. So you add a Mike Evans, you're hoping, we're all starting, we're going to talk about this team as if we're back to square one. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I could sit here and say, if they're healthy, but everybody's kind of expected to be healthy next season. So, you've
By
got
the way, another really good point, like Seattle did not suffer any injuries. Like,
no.
If we're talking
they
about
were
teams,
the healthiest team,
they were 100%. They had the lowest adjusted games lost in the little Football Outsiders or FT and Fantasy. They were lowest in adjusted games lost. Like, that's a big reason why they won the Super Bowl. They're running into teams who are banged up along the way. So I don't want to say it's easier, but come on, like you're not going on the same, you're not having to worry about or deal with the same roster depth issues that other teams are, other playoff teams especially.
Well, and that's a good point in terms of me discussing how the Seahawks dominated the 49ers. The 49ers were missing, by that time you had Nick Bosa, you had Michael Williams, you had Fred Warner. George Kittle was out eventually went out there at the very end. You were just missing so many pieces. It's tough to even get a realistic expectation for how these two teams can go. And if you want the most realistic representation, or at least the last time those two teams faced when they were anywhere close to the same as each other was in week 1 when the 49ers went into Seattle and won in exciting, last-minute fashion. But they were just so beaten up after that. It's tough to know what counts and what doesn't. You don't want to provide anybody any excuses. But in terms of the Seahawks defensive front, it's tough. It's tough. Where are we at? There was a comment over here that I wanted to get to, but I'll let you guys keep going at it. But
yeah, real quick, just to put a bow on the Seattle, like they finished 4th in the NFL last season in explosive play rate on offense. Like, think about that. Like Darnold, JSN, and like those big plays that got on the ground. I don't think that is sustainable. I don't think that is transferable year over year. Like there are other teams in the top 5 that I think will be, like the Rams, for example, the Lions, the Patriots, and then after those 3 is Seattle. So I think of those 3, I have a tough time thinking Seattle would be the one to keep that up, especially with all the changes that will inevitably happen with Clint Kubiak gone.
Right. With the 49ers changes, you're kind of expecting the 49ers to be better, especially on defense against basically everything. You're assuming you're getting Michael Williams back. You're assuming you're getting Nick Bosa. Right. You're assuming you're getting Nick Bosa back. You're getting Fred Warner's already 100%. He was close to at least teasing us with a return in the playoffs at the end of last season. And so the team that's going to be facing the Seahawks isn't the team that lost 54-9 in 2 games. Now have they closed that gap to where they're competitive? You could make the argument that they have with the amount of pieces that they're getting back and with the amount of additions they made on the offense. I think that there's a chance that this is closer than even I think it is. Sograd says, and the Niners' explosive play rate will have positive regression. It was brutal last year. And if it depends on what you want to attribute to, really. I know the 49ers really felt like a huge portion of their running rows were on like the exterior, where their tight ends couldn't do much, their receivers couldn't block much, and I'm sure there were a ton of plays that were blocked up well when it comes to the offensive line. But if you don't have those second or third level blocking, then a good run game isn't going to do any better than good.
No shot. Yep, no shot. But for what it's worth, they were the 4th worst, I believe it was. Explosive play rate last year. Sorry, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th worst explosive.
Don't you love those charts that don't give you numbers on the left, and you have the 1, 2, 3.
7th worst explosive play rate. I would go out on a limb and say that's the worst that Kyle Shanahan's had this decade.
Right. Yeah, there should be a little bit of a regression to the mean, or at least exceeding the mean. All right, so right next to, in my opinion, the Seattle Seahawks, you've got the Los Angeles Rams, who had a pretty interesting offseason. I'd say that their biggest move, at least the move that's going to have the most immediate impact, was trading for cornerback Trent McDuffie. They gave up a first to the Chiefs, number 29 overall, in exchange for their stud corner. The one massive, giant Achilles heel, and you talked about this all season, of the Rams last year was their secondary. And they went out and they got Jalen Watson from the Chiefs and traded for Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. So they're like, let's get us a little bit of that. So you're assuming that the Rams' one and biggest weakness is much, much better this year. And I don't know how much that moves the needle. You studied them a lot more, KP. KP, what did you feel about the Rams offseason?
Yeah, honestly, those were so people were under the impression that they were going to draft a wide receiver, and just because Devontae Adams might be on his last leg, you're not sure how much longer he's going to, last. So you want to get more help for Puka Nacua. But I remember tweeting this after the 49ers played the Rams, and this was after the Rams beat them. But Mac Jones scored 26 points, whatever it was. And I feel like they could have even had more than that. They just did whatever they wanted to against the Rams in both games with a backup quarterback, and not just a backup quarterback. I don't think Ricky played in either of those games either. So to be able to go out there with essentially backup quarterback, backup wide receivers, and move the ball up and down at will against the Rams, they had nobody who can cover. So going from that to And like Jalen Watson is no slouch. I would argue he was as good, if not better, than Trent McDuffie last year. Obviously, Trent McDuffie has the body of work, but he's the big, fast guy who you can put on your wide receiver one into the boundary on the outside, and McDuffie can go inside. So it gives him a lot of flexibility. I think those two additions put the Rams as the cream of the crop in the NFC. I really do think that the offense is going to be just as good. Like I think the world of Matthew Stafford.
Of course.
So yeah, I mean, just with how they played against Seattle, they won both. The offense won both of those games, but the defense had the ball last, and the defense couldn't get off the field. And that's why Seattle won. I think that was even the case when they played in the regular season in Seattle. Even with Matthew Stafford having all those turnovers, like they were still in the game all the time. So I think we're going to see the Rams look like the team to beat for much of the season. So we'll see. Like it is a lot of pressure on McDuffie and Watson because, like, if you look up and down the roster, that's basically all they did. They just added 2 very good corners. Like I'm not going to downplay that, but it does take a lot of pressure off the pass rush, and it probably takes pressure off the offense needing to score 35 a game. So would not be surprised at all if the Rams end up with the best record in the NFC. That would actually be my prediction, is that they get the number 1 seed.
Yeah, and if you look at the Rams' outgoing players, oh my God, they let go of Jimmy Garoppolo. Can't believe it. Tutu Atwell, a role player. You know, he had some big plays against the 49ers. Rob Havenstein retired. And here's where it tells you, here's what the Rams thought of their own secondary. Quarterback Kobe Durant out, went to the Cowboys. Cornerback Darion Kendrick out, went to the Cowboys. Cornerback Roger McCreary out, went to the Lions. Cornerback Darius Williams retired. Cornerback Akella Witherspoon out, went to the Commanders. That is, they were basically ready to move on from that entire room, and you can't blame them. You can't blame them.
It would have been tough for them to be worse on that side of the ball. So, like, I think Shula is a really good DC. So for them to even be competitive, a lot like Salah last year, for the 49ers to even be competitive, much like the Rams, it says something about the DC. So just looking at some of their stats last year, we're talking about explosive play rate allowed. So Seattle was the 4th best. And I think, again, like regression to the mean, that should change. But the Rams were on the other side of the coin. So that's probably going to come down a bit, especially with the corners that they added.
Yeah, and Lowbridge here mentions the fact that he's like, let's not forget Stafford played extremely well. He had back issues during the offseason. They had a trailer brought in just for him to get back therapy at the team facility. But yeah, he played fantastic. But if he gets banged up, they're in trouble. Matthew Stafford is their entire chance. Like, sure. And you can't say that as strongly with the 49ers. Obviously, there's a huge divide between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, but we saw Mac Jones. That's why he's still on this team. That's why the 49ers would have Sogras says it's the cloning trailer. They're making another one, a younger one.
Love it.
I don't even remember what I was saying. That's just a funny thought to me that they're in there just cloning Matthew Stafford.
Make another one of
those. What was I even talking about?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I was talking about, okay. So Mac Jones came in, played well in replacement of Brock Purdy. The Rams don't have that. They don't have that. They drafted the guy that
Ty Simpson?
They think Ty Simpson is the guy. They drafted another tight end in Max Clare. They're going to run 4 tight end sets. So it really was a weird offseason for the Rams, but I do really feel like they are probably the best team in the NFL right now. If those defensive additions work how you think, and everything else they've got around there, they've got a pretty well-rounded roster. So I think the Rams are the class of the NFC. Do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, they're bringing back the same offense that led the NFL in EPA per play, yards per play, points per drive, and they were second in explosive play rate. So like everything that you need to be for an explosive, efficient, successful offense, they have. And I don't see why that would change. And another thing that we're not really talking about or giving them credit for is their run game was insane last season. So I would assume that's going to be like, that is something that you can carry over in my mind. And that might be giving them too much credit. But even if it's not this historic ground game, even if it levels off just a little bit, like they're still going to be very, very difficult to get off the field.
What about the Cardinals? What do we say about the Cardinals? They added Gardner Minshew. To running back Tyler Algier, signed wide receiver Kendrick Bourne, 2 years, $10 million with a max value of 12. Good for him, man. Good for him. He's made himself a great career. Isaac Sumalo, that 3-year, $31 million deal. That's a nice little signing right there. So they're working on their offensive line. Then you can go to their draft class if you want to.
First two picks are not bad. Jeremiah Love, I know you would argue that, hey, you probably need to build around him, but just take the best player, right? You're building for the future. Sorry, Tyler Algier, but we're going to just
You're the number 2 again.
Yeah, right. Chase Pasantis in the second round. That is a good pick. That is a player that the 49ers probably could have taken at 33. So don't mind there, but
Walter, they got Carson Beck too, bro.
Forgot about
Is he supposed to be their starter? Or no, it's what's his name? No, it's
Jacoby.
There you go.
So I'm pretty sure Walter Nolan is coming off like a really bad injury. I don't want to say Achilles. It might be Achilles. Their other former first rounder the year before, Darius Robinson, hasn't done anything. So like if you look up and down that defensive roster, outside of Josh Sweat, and of course like Budda Baker as long as he's alive, they really don't have anything. Their secondary leaves a lot to be desired, I would say. I don't know. Like the wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, like they're a formidable duo, but we're still talking about Jacoby Brissett. So like the ceiling is as low as you can imagine. So unless Nolan really turns it on, they're going to struggle to reach 5 wins, I would say.
Yeah, Lowbridge says Marvin Harrison Jr. will be significantly better. You're hoping so. Yeah, he has just had a weird season. It was kind of like he was in his own head. I still think he's going to be a very good player. Sogras says Nolan looked really, really good in his very brief stint. Yeah, I was
getting banged up.
I was a big Nolan guy in the draft. They lost a ton of guys too. Obviously, they traded. They didn't trade Kyler Murray. He was released, and then he signed with the Vikings. They lost Greg Dortch. They lost Zay Jones, offensive tackle Jonah Williams, offensive guard Will Hernandez. I think he was their starter. They let Calais Campbell go, who's still a solid defensive lineman. He was just kind of wasted there, so they let him move on to somewhere else. So, and then I thought I had their draft class. Yeah, Jeremiah Love and Chase Pasantis. I like that a lot. They got Caleb Proctor, who is a decent defensive tackle. Not necessarily somebody I expect to come in and have a huge impact right away. So they're not there yet. I don't think the Cardinals necessarily have anything that the 49ers need to worry about yet. But, they've always found a weird way to hang around. And I don't know if they're going to have that scrappiness this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if they found a way to get it back. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the NFC West. And now we're just going to work our way down the playoff teams as they were seeded from last year. We won't get through the entire NFC. We're going to stick to mainly the main teams. We consider the 49ers a playoff team. Let's stick to the playoff teams for the most part. And maybe some teams that'll probably be up and coming. A team that I think is going to be every bit as good as they were last year, if not significantly better, is the Chicago Bears. And they gave the 49ers a run for their money last year in what was maybe one of the more entertaining games of the year.
So good.
So where are you at on the Chicago Bears, man? I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be a little dangerous.
They drafted the safety that everybody wanted the 49ers to take, Dylan Thieneman. Kobe Bryant came over from the Seahawks, so safety was a big issue. The secondary in general was a big issue, so they addressed that a lot like the Rams. I've always been a Kyler Gordon fan. Jalen Johnson was another guy the 49ers had been flirted with a couple years back. I don't know. So if you were obviously you guys were paying attention to the Bears last year, like they had 11 wins, but it felt as fluky as possible. My initial instinct was they're the team in the NFC North that takes a step back, but I'm not.
They did have a lot of losses. A lot of losses.
I'm not sold on the rest of the division either. So it's probably going to look a lot like last year where they're all within a couple games of each other. So Chicago was 11-6. But they were only plus 26 point differential, which is, again, so wild to say. Defensively, they were poor. Like they were below average across the board. So are you hoping that Montez Sweat and like the pass rush takes a step forward? Because they didn't really do anything to address it other than add Kentavious Street, which is their defensive
We know that name.
Yes, we do. But I think it's Ben Johnson offense, so it's going to come down to them outscoring everybody I will give them credit though, because I think Luther Burton has a chance to be a stud. I think Colson Loveland, to me, he was better than Tyler Warren coming out. I think he showed those same traits last season. So if Burton and Loveland take that year 2 jump and Caleb Williams continues to ascend in that Ben Johnson offense and a quarterback-friendly offense, they're going to be a really fun team to watch. How good they are, I don't know, because I still do have questions about the defense, but they're realistically going to score a ton of points. I mean, they have a lot of weapons on offense, and as long as Ben Johnson is pressing the buttons over there and Caleb just stops taking those, immature type sacks or making those immature decisions, I think they're going to be really good. They're inevitable, or I think realistically, we're looking at another playoff team, but would not be surprised if they do take a step back.
Yeah, you're losing safety Kevin Byard. You're losing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Jaquan Brisker. I'm not exactly sure, Tremaine Edmonds. I'm not exactly sure who their go-to studs are on that team. But, there's some names that Kevin Byard was one of the guys that I felt like the 49ers, he was one of my favorite possibilities for the 49ers to add in free agency. And, at this point, after the draft, I'm surprised the 49ers have done so little to address the safety spot, but we'll see. Maybe Raheem Morris has more faith in them than the rest of them. And then you look at their additions, man. They got a lot. They replaced Kevin Byard with Kobe Bryant from the Seahawks, so kind of a 1-to-1 swap there. Looking at some of their other names, nothing crazy coming out to me. They traded for center Garrett Bradbury. So yeah, Bears. I just think they kind of maintain what they had for the most part, and at least their biggest losses they replaced. And I could see them. Just being it's a lot of the Caleb Williams thing, man. That guy you never really know how, you can't really ever just call it. Like it was just so, and even on that last play of the Bears game, like he was maybe a foot, if he would have thrown that pass a foot higher, he's under pressure and he was running all over the place and he throws that pass and it was only about a foot short of being caught. It was a lot closer than I felt like everybody reacted. I felt like they're like, oh, look at him, they're under pressure. He had to throw it away. I was like, dude, that was very close to being caught, and that would have been the game.
His arm talent is insane. When I think about it, okay, so when the 49ers played the Bears last year, I was worried because I didn't think the 49ers were going to get any stops. Like I was expecting it to be another game where, first to 40 wins. This time around, though, I would imagine the 49ers have a lot more success, but I don't know if I'm as worried that the defense gets stops because, again, it's sweat, but after that, you're just kind of crossing your fingers and hoping, and Dennis Allen's hoping somebody else can get pressure. So,
right. Let's keep it moving. I guess next on this list would be the Philadelphia Eagles, which, man, did they? I mean, everybody expects them to lose A.J. Brown. What else did they add during the offseason? These are signings. They added quarterback Andy Dalton. That's huge. They added Marquise Brown. They added Elijah Moore. These guys, you could tell that they were trying to kind of Dontavian Wicks. They traded for him from the Packers. You could tell they were trying to kind of me too. You could tell they were trying to insulate their wide receiver group from the inevitable exit of A.J. Brown, which, that whole player, there were a lot of people talking about the 49ers needing to get in on that mix for A.J. Brown, and I was like, yep, let's just add another receiver who seems to maybe have an emotionally unstable element to his, completely different than what they're dealing with now. But I was like, that might not be the way that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan want to go, but would be pretty, I think his fit would be pretty insane. They brought back Dallas Goedert. Looking through here, they traded for Jonathan Greenard, which is not a small thing. They gave up quite a bit. I think they gave up 2 third-rounders in consecutive years.
Signed Tariq Woolen from the Seahawks.
Yep, got him from the Seahawks. So the Eagles aren't going away. I would say that, even if they do trade A.J. Brown, which they might consider addition, not addiction. That would be some other direction we'd be going with this conversation. Addition by subtraction. It's I think they're going to be good. Obviously, their GM knows what he's doing, and I didn't look at their draft class yet, but
Makai Lemon.
You can, there you go. Oh, the old Pittsburgh Steelers, like that sucks. That was weird. Looking at their losses, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Phillips. Yeah, they traded for Jalen Phillips. He had a good season with the Eagles, and they let him go just right out the gate. They were hoping that was going to be a piece that pushed them over. They lost Brandon Graham. So some bigger names on there. What do you think of the Eagles, man? Are they going to be par for the course?
No, I think they take a step back, man. So if you just think about what they do on offense, it felt like a lot of 50-50 balls or my player is better than yours kind of routes. And a lot of times it worked because their players are generally better on the outside of receiver anyway. But now you're going to go from A.J. Brown and that physique to Mekhi Lemon, who wasn't really a perimeter wide receiver at USC. So now they're going to roll with Devonta Smith, who I think is a stud. I don't think anybody would argue that. But you go from Brown to Lemon, or Brown to Lemon, Wicks, Hollywood Brown, who
big point right there too from Sograz and Stoutland, their O-line coach.
Now you go from Stoutland, who is revered as one of the best in the game, or if not the best in the game, and who knows if Lane Johnson is going to play every game, because that hasn't been the case the last couple of years. So they're going to have to really change what they do offensively without A.J. Brown, and I think that is going to really lead to some turmoil. Jalen Hurts is going to have to do something different. He's going to actually have to throw the ball over the middle, God forbid. That's not something that he wants to do. But I also think defense takes a step back too. Now they're pretty good defensively last year, and that's always going to be the case when you have Vic Fangio. But losing, like, Jalen Phillips was really good for them last year.
Yep.
So now you lose him, and of course they added Greenard, but you're looking at what, like Hunt, Arnold Ebiketie, who knows with Jalen Carter? Is he going to come back motivated? They took a linebacker in the first round last year, and he couldn't get on the field. I don't know, man. Quinion Mitchell's probably the top 3 cornerback in the NFL. So as long as you have him, Cooper DeJean, and Reek Williams probably going to fit in nicely there. The secondary is going to be nice, but what about the pass rush? I think the pass rush takes a step back. I think the offense still has issues, and they had issues last season, but now they're going to have even more complications because of the loss of A.J. Brown. So I would not be surprised if this is a sneaky, doesn't make the playoffs kind of team. So
interesting.
I'm not a Hurts guy. Never really have been, even in college, man. I remember watching him at Oklahoma, at Alabama, was never truly sold. He came into a perfect situation, but they're either going to have to rely on his legs or just completely cut up the offense and do something different. And that's going to take time. And that's not something that I think will get solved in 2026. So I'm not seeing it with the Eagles.
And to me, it's almost like a expectation status quo. Like, it's just hard for me to envision them not being competitive again. It's eventually going to happen, especially with the way that whole kind of Eagle sphere talks about Jalen Hurts as if it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. They know. Yeah, it's not necessarily like him or his personality. It's just the way things are kind of wasting away in the way he plays the game and their inability to kind of hide it. For the most part, like, there's only so much they're going to be able to do. I know Sograz mentioned that they drafted tight end Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt, which is, he's good. He's a pass catching guy, and maybe they're going to really lean into the Eli Stowers Dallas Goedert combination, and but again, that's over the middle stuff for the most part. So we'll see where they go with that. But
Saquon we have not talked about the running back. Saquon Barkley is 29, which is so wild. But he had the most underwhelming 1,000-yard season last year. And maybe that is, like, if that doesn't speak to the quarterback, like, what does, right? When you can't get that guy going, and obviously the offensive line injuries, and I don't think the center, Cam Jurgens, has been as good as they anticipated. But, man, when you look at the talent on the field, they always leave a lot to be desired, man.
Yeah, he's getting there. Okay, so let's see who else we've got next on the playoff seating. So technically, from the playoff seeding, it would be the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. Do they continue to work their way up? I mean, I thought Bryce Young had a respectful season. I feel like I'm kind of rooting for him, not in the sense that like it's just he's just gone through it, and in the way that a quarterback in Carolina is going to go through it. It's inevitable. But did they do enough? Let me see what they got here in terms of additions. It should be on. Yeah, this is additions. What are their biggest names here? They signed quarterback Kenny Pickett. That's huge. Travis Gibson from the 49ers. Big deal. They're the ones that signed Jalen Phillips. So that's going to give them a little bit of a juice. They signed Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, nice little bag, too.
Yeah, he did. They signed Devin Lloyd. That's a big deal. John Mechie, he had some momentum coming out of the draft, but obviously that injury just completely killed things there. There's probably a name in there that I'm underrating. I'm jumping over here to their losses. Takes a little bit for me to bounce around through here. They lost Andy Dalton, Rico Dowdle, their little fantasy wonderland. So yeah, I don't see necessarily too much change with them. A'Shaun Robinson with the Bucks. But I also, at the same time, I don't necessarily think they're in a. Would you say they're overperformed last season? Should we expect them to be right where they were last year? Do you think they'll be better? I don't. It's hard for me to get a grasp on them. Obviously, we're reaching all the way out to Carolina. None of us are Carolina Panther experts here, but it's hard for me.
I think they win the division, but that says more about the other teams in the division than it does Carolina. So I'm not sold on Bryce Young. I think this, if I'm Carolina, this is probably make or break for Bryce Young.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Knowing the quarterback class next year, like I'd be looking very closely to the options there. So their left tackle got hurt, but they also drafted Monroe Freeling, and they drafted Chris Brazil, which is another very polarizing wide receiver. But that's just a bigger guy, speed guy, and they really need somebody to stretch the field. How that works out, I have no idea. But I think the world of their DC, and I think Jalen Phillips playing next to Derek Brown is going to do wonders for them. Would also imagine their second rounder, Nick Scroton, is going to take a step forward next year. So you have the D-line, you have J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson, who arguably is one of the better tandems at cornerback in the NFL. So I think they're going to give the other teams fits. Don't have to deal with Mike Evans in Tampa Bay anymore, which would go a long way for them because he just tears up the NFC South. So it's probably going to look more like 9-10 wins too, but that's just the NFC South. But yeah, I think they make the playoffs. I think they're going to be the NFC South representatives.
New Orleans won't be bad. They could be decent. Tampa Bay, I'm sure they're taking a little bit of a step back. That's probably one of the bigger steps back we see in the NFL, I would assume. Yeah, Carolina Panthers will get interesting. Packers, another one that's interesting. You know, they're always in the mix in the same way the 49ers always find a way to be in the mix. Where you at on the Packers, man? That's another one where I'm like, yeah, somewhere in there. I'm not sure.
Well, they added Javon Hargrave, so their defense is back. I remember tweeting like how I would rank the NFC teams. I think it was after week 11 last year. I had Seattle 1 and I had Green Bay 2. And then once they lost Devontae Wyatt, they just completely fell apart on the defensive side. So I would imagine, like, if Wyatt comes back, if Parsons is just a shell, if Parsons is anywhere near the kind of player he's capable of being, they are going to be very good up front. But you still wonder, man, like that secondary was atrocious. Like they really struggled. And I didn't think when I was watching these corners in the rookie class, so they drafted Brandon Cisse in the second round. If you watch Ole Miss versus South Carolina,
Niners are still paying.
They really are. That is wild.
Howdy said the Niners are still playing Javon Hargrave.
Stribling was getting the best of Cisse in that game. He got him. Cisse got him early, but as the game progressed, Stribling looked like the NFL player. So I really wasn't too impressed with Cisse. I don't know, man. The Packers are just so confusing all the time.
They lost Romeo Doubs. They lost Dontavian Wicks.
I do not think Matthew Golden is the wide receiver that you need to revolve your offense around, which is the type of player you take in the first round. And I think based on his usage, you could tell like they didn't really know what to do with him. So they're hoping that Jaden Reed and Christian Watson stays healthy. There were rumors that they were flirting with the idea of releasing Aaron Banks after 1 year. So if that tells you anything about how Banks performed last year, like I had Packers fans reaching out to me, like, "Why didn't you tell me about this guy?" Like, hey man, I'm not gonna talk down on a player after he leaves just because he left. But yeah, I think the Packers are going to be middling. I do think LaFleur is a good head coach, and I think Jordan Love's a really, really, really good quarterback. So as long as you have a really good quarterback and a really good head coach and that type of pass rush in Parsons, you're always going to be competitive. But I mean, the way things shake out, it can go so many different ways. They go on these streaks during the season. They're such a Jekyll and Hyde team that I don't know what to think of them. So when I'm confused about a team, it's easy to just kind of fall back. And assume they're going to be middling again.
Yeah, it always seems like there's just something up and down about them. Maybe it's a Jordan Love thing. Like I've seen Jordan Love, like he's just hot and cold. He'll make these tremendous plays and look like the guy everybody thinks he is, and then they'll do something where you're like, yeah, that's kind of the experience. It seems the consistent experience you get with Jordan Love. I think he's a good quarterback, but I think he's I don't really play into these things very often, but I think he's a little overrated. If at some point you've got to put it all together and you've got to put, especially on the bigger stages. And, the last time he was playing the 49ers in the playoffs, he was a real huge reason they lost that game, just making unnecessary turnovers. So it's hard to know where you're ever going to go with a quarterback that you don't really know how far he can take you. But let's keep going because I know we're at the 45-minute mark. You've got the Vikings, but I want to at least highlight two more teams. The Lions and the Cowboys, because when you were texting, you told me that you expected pretty big jumps from the Lions and the Cowboys. So why don't you tell me what you were feeling from there?
Real quick, I'll just leave it at this. I'll let you guys do with this information what you will. I think Jordan Love is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he has the potential to be like a top 5 guy. Obviously, he hasn't performed that way, but you can see the flashes. And
he's like an analytics darling.
I say that as a guy who is just obsessed with variance, which is why like Love, Brock Purdy, like those guys, I gravitate toward them because I don't care about the mistakes because I know this ceiling. As far as the Lions go, the Lions and Cowboys, when I was doing those rankings, I had them ahead of the Niners because I watched them play later on in the season. And before the Lions really just got decimated with injuries, for as much injury talk as we talked about the 49ers last year, the Lions were like right there. They still finished plus 68 in point differential, which was 3rd in the NFC. So they were 9-8, but I mean, they had a tough schedule down the stretch. They could have easily had 11 wins. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of revert back to the Lions team that we've seen from them. They did lose one of their linemen who retired. Oh, Taylor Decker. So they lost Taylor Decker, but they're going to move Penei Sewell over to the left side. They drafted Blake Miller, which I think is just such a great fit for them. You're under the impression that, okay, Jahmyr Gibbs showed off what he can be last year. Hopefully, Sam Laporta comes back and looks like Sam Laporta. I've thought the world of him as well since he's entered the NFL. And then you get something from Jameson Williams where he looks like a more consistent guy on a down-to-down basis. Obviously, that offense, that passing game, I should say, runs through Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if they can get Jameson Williams back to the player that they know he's capable of being, that offense is going to be very, very good, especially as long as Gibbs is out there. Gibbs is just like a nightmare, a mismatch. So also you better hope that Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph stay healthy because when those guys were on the field, the Lions were competitive, very competitive. I've never really been sold on Aiden Hutchinson, so I understand the reservations about the Lions. If you're under the impression that he's going to be, to me, his stats are a lot like the Bengals guy who's slipping my name right now.
Aiden Hutchinson.
Everybody want to side.
No, you're talking about Aiden Hutchinson.
Yes, I am. Shoot, that's his name.
The one that everybody wanted the 49ers to sign the whole time.
Yes.
I know, and I can't.
Whatever
Trey
his name
Hendrickson.
is.
Trey Hendrickson is his name.
So I think those two are about as empty stat guys as it gets. Like at the end of the season, it looks like they put up a bunch of good stats. But when you watch the games, like, where are these dudes, man? These pressures are not adding up. So I get the reservations there, but still, it's Dan Campbell, man, and that offense, they're gonna hum. They're just gonna outscore you. And in an offensive league, I think that bodes well. So as long as they get their guys healthy on the defensive side in the secondary, I think they're going to be a pretty tough out. I think this is the team who wins the NFC North.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Cowboys, maybe one of my 3 favorite first 3 picks of a draft class. Caleb Downs found a way to make his way to them, which I just thought was crazy. Shout out to Kenny, my buddy Kenny, who's a Dallas fan, and I'm just sitting there going, man, Caleb Downs is really going to get there. And I kind of I made some time to watch him a little bit just because of how many times I heard his name mentioned. That dude seemed like a top 3 player in this draft class. Like, he was awesome. and they got him at 11. And then they got Malachi Lawrence at 23, who was commonly associated with the 49ers.
Yeah, he was.
And then they got Jayshon Barham in the third round, who I really wanted the 49ers to take at like 90. I didn't even care if they'd already gotten Romello Height, just because of the way you could kind of use them both if you wanted to. So they had a good draft class. Again, I thought Caleb Downs was awesome. And with the Detroit Lions, it's just kind of the same thing you're talking. Like, it's just there's just teams that find a way to make it work. And the fact that the Detroit Lions have shown that they can compete despite being injury riddled, even on that year when they went deep into the playoffs, they'd replaced almost every single person on their defense. So, I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like, I could see both of these teams being, obviously I'm not the fan. I'm not the one pushing for them to get back into the mix. But I think the Cowboys are a little overdue. Wouldn't surprise me if the 49ers find themselves facing the Cowboys in the playoffs again, which they seem to do. And that's always entertaining at the very, very least. Looking at some of these other team names, anybody else that stands out to you on here? Vikings, Bucks, Falcons.
I want to expound on Dallas, because
do it.
Top 5 in EPA per play, yards per play, points per drive, explosive play rate on offense. Dak Prescott is among the very best quarterbacks in the NFL, and that passing game is just as unstoppable as it gets. Like, when they're humming, they can score on anybody. Their offensive line is very good as well. I think that doesn't get enough credit. So they're going to be able to run the ball because of that offense. And then as long as CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb, and then you get to work off that with George Pickens, I don't know why injuries would be the only reason in my mind why Dallas doesn't win the NFC East. I think they're going to be the team that, I don't know if they surprise people, just because they've been hovering right around that 500 or a little over 500 the past few seasons, but their defense just not being a sieve is going to be what really allows them to win games. I honestly love the D Winners trade for them. So they get a linebacker who, and this is under the impression that they're going to be able to, that Winner stays healthy, but now they get a linebacker who can cover. And I know for whatever reason, people think that Winners can't cover. I could not disagree with that more. Just if you go through his box score, he was getting targeted at an insane rate. I believe he was one of the most targeted players in the NFL last year. So, of course, your numbers aren't going to look great when that's the case. But take the Rams game, for example. Early in the season, I think they targeted him 9 times, and he's giving up fewer than 6 yards. He's giving up fewer than 50 yards. There was actually only one game last season where Dre gave up over 50 yards in coverage, and that was that Rams game that I'm talking about. But he's targeted 9 times, so of course. But I think that he's going to be a nice fit for them. And then you talk about Quinnen Williams. If you watch Dallas and look at their numbers post Quinnen Williams, they were one of the better teams, or better defenses, I should say, in the NFL. So a full season with Quinnen Williams. You get Kenny Clark in there. Obviously, they traded for Rashawn Gary, who I'm not going to say he's a game changer, but he's a better body than what they had there. And if the first rounder Malachi Lawrence can give them anything, but I agree with Caleb Downs too, though. He's going to be a glue guy on the back end that they just haven't had that luxury to have. A guy that just isn't making the same boneheaded mistakes. So I think they're going to be a lot better defensively, and the offense, even if it plateaus, they're still the top 5 in the NFL. So it's a recipe for success.
Yeah, and if you look at their losses, there's not really a name that really stands out, meaning they're kind of bringing the same group back, but making additions. The biggest name to me on their losses list is Osa Odigizua, who they traded to the 49ers for. And if that was your biggest loss, and this is not a slight to Osa Odigizua, because I think he's a very, very good player, and I think he's going to be a very good player for the 49ers. But if that is your biggest loss, then you could kind of expect things to kind of turn the corner and go in the right direction. And when it comes to D Winners, I feel like the only reason he had such a down year in coverage is because everybody else was out. Everybody had a down year in coverage because they had nobody capable of putting any pressure on quarterbacks. Everybody's going to have a down year. But up until this last year, D Winners' specialty, he was one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. So I'm not necessarily down on him. I know why they traded him. They were kind of dealing with a little bit of a surplus there, and it would have been nice for them to try to keep him just because of the way things tend to go with Dre Greenlaw. But I get it.
Injury away from Nick Martin, man.
Right. So they kind of feel like, and that's another thing. You take a linebacker in the 3rd round, eventually you're going to have to give him some sort of a stage. So you can't just keep him sitting behind D Winters. But yeah, I feel like the Cowboys got a lot better. Do they find a way to screw it up? It just seems like something's always weird in Dallas, but they seem like they're setting the stage for a decent season. You talked about the Lions. Is there anybody else on here? The Commanders. They went 5-12, and there's a chance that could turn all the way around. I thought I saw somebody mention them. Yeah, Sogras said Washington added a whole lot of mid that may be enough to propel that team to competitive if Daniels looks like he did 2 years ago. The Pickens time bomb will be.
They better hope Brandon Ayuk is 2023 version. Like if that happens.
Good luck with that, man.
Yeah, right. Like other than that, though, it's a lot of pressure. Like you're asking a lot out of Sonny Styles, your first round pick, to just be a superstar, because I know they added a bunch of vets on that defense, but I don't know who they're going to guard or how they're going to get stops on that side of the ball. And just expecting Jaden Daniels to hold up with the style that he plays is just not conducive to success. So I'm actually not very high on Terry McLaurin either, which is why
what the hell is wrong with you?
I know. Which is why they probably want Ayuk so McLaurin can be more of a wide receiver too. But I think Washington has a long way to go.
There's Sogras says it was the craziest collection of free agents in a while. Did Washington go crazy in free agency?
Names drawing out of a hat. So they signed wide receiver.
I'm going to count the names on this list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 names, ending with kicker Jake Moody.
Hey,
you got a Kello Witherspoon. I'm just linebacker Leo Chanel, Odafe Owe, Charles Omenahu, Clavon Chasen. Where are we at here? Van Jefferson, Treylon Burks, Diami Brown, Rashad White, Jeremy McNichols, Jerome Ford. Let's just add 3 running backs. Let's just sign these 3 running backs.
They could have 7 free agents that they signed start on defense. Best of luck.
Yeah, that's wild. That was
Connerly, the right tackle, is a stud though. So if the line takes a step forward because Tunsil and Connerly are your bookends, then maybe Krosky Merritt is able to pick up where he left off last year. Maybe Daniel stays healthy if they get Ayuk and McLaurin, the passing game, takes a step forward. But there's so many ifs or so many hopes that it's tough to put much stock into that.
Okay, so let's do a quick in front of or behind thing. Where do we settle the 49ers in here somewhere. Behind the Seahawks, yeah?
No.
In front of the Seahawks.
I'm saying no. Where do you?
Do you think the 49ers are in front of the Seahawks?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So they're ahead
Seattle. I think Seattle's more like 9-10, and the 49ers are more like 10-11.
Okay. Chicago Bears. Yes or no?
Bears take a step back. So no.
Eagles back.
Back.
Panthers.
Where are you at with these? You have to give your answer too.
Okay. I think they're behind the Seahawks. I think they're about even with or slightly ahead of the Bears. I think they're ahead of the Eagles. Still awesome that they beat them in the playoffs with their B squad. Just went in there and made it happen. Behind the Rams, yeah.
Behind, yeah.
Ahead of the Packers?
Yes. I would go Rams 1 seed. And this is tough because the 49ers and Rams play in the same division. But I guess Rams with the best record. Let me phrase it like that. Rams with the best record. Dallas with the second best record.
Oof, no, I love it.
No. Let's go Rams with the best record. Detroit with the second best record because they get the last play schedule, which is going to be very beneficial for them playing the bums in the AFC. And then I'll go Dallas third best record, and then Carolina, and then the 49ers will be the 5th seed. But obviously,
not a better record, but with a better record than Carolina. Yeah, of course.
So
I think I'm right around there.
I'll have the 49ers as the 4th best record in the NFC.
Okay. It's weird because I feel like Dallas might have a better record than the 49ers, but I feel like the 49ers would still beat Dallas.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Detroit is, you never know what you're going to get there. I feel like Detroit has this this sledgehammer button, that more than maybe any other team in the NFL, even the Rams, maybe it's from that playoff game, and the 49ers ended up winning the game. But from that first half where they played the Detroit, I've never seen a team just punch another team in the mouth.
They're really good, man.
Detroit did to the 49ers, and it was just, and the 49ers ended up winning that game, but it's still, there's something about the Lions that if they play to their potential, if their coaches make the right decisions, and if Jared Goff is on, they're just like, boom, here's 30 points, like, in a quarter type of thing. So
down the stretch when they were banged up last year, they gave the Rams hell at SoFi Stadium. They lost 34-41, but I'm pretty sure they were up by a touchdown, by 10 points or something in that game. They were just so banged up they couldn't get any stops. So those injuries kind of played out over the next couple games where they played the Steelers, they played the Vikings, and they beat the Bears in a meaningless game. But I can't get the way that they played the Rams, and even the week before the Cowboys, and even the week before that, they should have beat the Packers. So I think those kind of games in a coin flip, right, they're going to be the beneficiary moving forward.
Yeah, look, we got Lyle's Figure Files, also known as Lyle's Movie Files. One of the long-standing regulars from Takeaway Time, finally up in the YouTube. So I think we got everything. Did we leave anybody out? I mean, there's nobody out there that I feel like is going to surprise. Is Kyler Murray going to be starting for the Vikings?
I think so. If he loses, it might be time to go play baseball. If he can't beat out JJ McCarthy,
calls him up. Hey, is that draft pick still active? You guys still want me around over there? Yeah. There's not a whole lot there. I'm looking at just the division, seeing if there's anything else. Yeah, I think the Rams are going to be the class.
The Vikings just overachieved, and that's like a Brian Flores statement. Like, he's that good, but they just don't have the talent defensively, man. So unless Caleb Banks ends up being better than I thought he was, and I was very high on him, but I don't see it.
Yeah, it's so gross mentioning the fact that every time I ever see Lyle's on there, I always have to say Lyle's Movie Files. Okay, I think that kind of sets the stage. And again, we will be on here one day later. Normally, we're on here Wednesday evening. We're going to be doing Thursday evening because the schedule release is Thursday, and I think it's at officially 5 p.m. Pacific time. So we will be on here just.
I think maybe this is wrong. I feel like it's 4:30 normal people time, but NFL is going live at the top of the hour, so it might be out 30 minutes earlier than usual. Could be wrong. But
Forever Season schedule powered by Amazon Web Services will be released on Thursday, May 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which would be 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Shut up, KP.
Wrong again.
not about stribbling.
Hey, yo.
Well, we'll see. Yeah,
right.
And I don't know if those box drills have anything to say about it.
Oof.
Watch out for those box drills, guys. All right, so there you go. That's kind of the NFC. It's spoken to you eloquently by KP, who clearly has a much more in-depth grasp on these other teams than I do. But that's why we keep him around here, man. He props us up.
Before we get out of here, real quick, NFC Championship prediction?
NFC Championship prediction? Oh, man. I don't know.
Rams, Cowboys.
Okay. Yeah, man, I don't know. The 49ers, I think, are going to be real good this year, but
I do too.
And they have one of the easier schedules in the NFL. I don't want to play, I don't want to pander though.
Which is why I didn't say them.
Yeah, got to be Rams. Rams have got to be one of them.
If the 49ers face the Cowboys in the playoffs, we know it's going to happen because history has told us it's going to happen every time. So
right.
The Cowboys just hope they don't play the 49ers. They get on the other side of the bracket and they're good.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That's too tough for me. That's too tough. You went Rams, Cowboys.
Yeah,
what was the NFC Championship game this year?
It was
Seahawks and
Seattle beat. Did they beat the Rams? They did beat the Rams, right?
Bro, my brain is mush by this point of the day. I'm really quite useless.
They beat the Rams.
Yeah, so yeah, screw it. I'll go. Can I go Cowboys 49ers? Does that mathematically make sense?
I mean, it honestly, that's probably more realistic if we want to go there. And oh god.
That would be legendary.
The lead up to that week will be very fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was the Rams. Lyle says it was the Rams. Man, it's just I can't remember anything. My memory is so bad. All right, well there you go. There's the NFC. as said by KP. And again, we'll be on here Thursday shortly after the schedule release. We might even move the podcast or the live and the podcast up a little bit earlier, just so we can kind of do it right when it comes out. Rather than wait until 6, if KP could swing it, and I'll probably just have that immediately out on the podcast as well. No sense in hanging it around for the next morning, but that'll be fun. That'll be interesting. I guarantee you the 49ers are going to go 17-0. I'm calling it now. The 49ers are going to go 17-0, and they're going to face the Cowboys.
Holy pander.
17-0, guys. You heard it here first. One of my favorite phrases on the internet. All right, everybody. KP, good job, man. Good job. Way to hold up the show. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out, man. This I enjoyed the fact that we got to do this live on YouTube, and you guys were all in here to add to the conversation. And add you did. It was a lot of good comments that contributed to the show, so I appreciate it. If you're listening on iTunes, or even if you're on here on YouTube and you haven't done it already, jump on iTunes, jump on Spotify, leave us a 5-star review because it matters and we appreciate it, and we would be in your debt. And again, we will be on here Thursday to break down the NFL schedule. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very, very much. But for another show, that's KP. I'm Rob. This is Striking Gold, and we are signing out.